Is the newspaper business dead? Is journalism going through a rebirth? Is conflict needed to make an op-ed page good? What does freedom of the press really mean? We'll discuss all this and more with renowned journalist Ken Herman from the Austin-Statesman. You're watching Access News, hands-on news. Access News is pleased to welcome journalist Ken Herman, who has held many different positions in the newspaper business. Capitol Bureau Chief, White House correspondent, columnist, editorial page writer, Metro journalist, paperboy? Is that true?
In the future, I aspire to reach paperboy at some point.
Welcome to Access News.
Thank you.
So, you know, in the First Amendment of the Constitution, it talks about freedom of the press. So what exactly is freedom?
It sounds simple, and it's not, because freedoms have to exist while we live with other people. You're free to do lots of things, but there are some limits based on how it impacts other people. Freedom of the press, I think, is sometimes misunderstood because, for example, you don't have a right to have a letter to the editor in our newspaper. We own the newspaper. Freedom of the press allows us to do what we want with it. So there are people who think freedom of the press means you have the right to be heard wherever you want to be heard. I'm not sure it works that way. But what it does mean is government has no right to tell you what you can and cannot say.
Over the last 10 years, newspapers have been closing, and a lot of employees have lost their jobs. And really, right now, a lot of people are more focused on online news. So with newspapers and online news, there's a difficult relationship. Can you tell us what that's been like?
It's been difficult, been challenging. Newspapers are at a precipice, and frankly, I believe, and I think a lot of people believe, at some point we will not have printed newspapers. Whether that's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, no one really has a way of knowing. We are going through a technological change such that we have not seen since Gutenberg invented the printing press. This is a once every hundreds of years change in how we disseminate information. The internet is the most powerful tool created in my lifetime. And the great thing about the internet is anybody can publish on it. And the bad thing about the internet is anybody can publish on it. So you have no way of knowing what it is you're seeing, where it came from, if it's well-researched material or just someone's opinion and surmise. And frankly, there's room for all of that. But it's important in having an informed citizenry that they can tell the difference between researched facts and opinion.
You're right. I'm actually glad that you brought up about the people publishing online, because blogs are very popular right now, and even I have one. I have a blog. So is blogging equally accountable as journalism?
Some blogging is journalism and some isn't. I mean, it's just like on a printed page. Some, you can type something up and make copies of it and distribute it. It might be journalism, it might not be. We get in the newspaper business a little self-righteous, and I fear almost arrogant about this, but in any city in America, in this city, in any city, the largest organization doing objective journalism is the newspaper, in resources, in person power, in having a staff to go out and try to find, as we always try to do, the best attainable version of the truth. And that's different than someone just sitting in their house and blogging. Some bloggers are journalists, but many are just relaying their opinions. Again, there is room for that. I get concerned when people look at that and say that's fact.
Glad you brought that up, because I read a lot of different blogs online, and I'm wondering, how can I, or how can our viewers know the difference between a blog that's fact-based or opinion-based? Is there a way for us to identify the difference?
Yes, if there's a picture of the blogger and they're wearing pajamas and have aluminum foil on their head, you need to be a little cautious about this. But no, I mean, you just have to be discerning. So much of it is just someone's interpretation of things. So much of it is, you know, there's this phrase now, aggregating, where you just take other things other people have reported and pass it along. We used to call that plagiarism. Now it's aggregating. And they attribute where it came from. But it's tough because it's overwhelming. There is so much material out there, and it's so hard to discern what it is. I have a fear that a lot of people like to get what they consider news from a source that they know agrees with them philosophically. I use Rush Limbaugh as the example of this. I happen to think Rush Limbaugh is great at what he does. What he does is not what I consider news. It is opinion, it is commentary, it's interpretive, and that's fine. There is an absolute room for that. We need that. I get concerned when people say that's the source of my news.
When we read the newspaper or on websites, articles that we find, we see editorials and we see journalists. What's the difference between the two?
The newspaper has many functions, and any daily newspaper tries to have lots of different things for lots of people. Not everything in the paper is for everybody. We have a sports section. It's hard to imagine to me, but there are people who don't like sports, but we have a sports section. Most of the newspaper is news. Under the, you know, it's not supposed to be opinion. It's supposed to be straight up reporting of the news. I know we fail at that sometimes. Sometimes it's almost always unintentionally. But it is, again, the best attainable version of the truth. We also have the opinion page and the op-ed page, which is clearly labeled as opinion. One page is the newspaper's opinion, sometimes with some columns by people on the staff. And the other page generally is national columnists, and it's their opinion. And it's, you know, it's supposed to be somewhat provocative. It is opinion, but it's, you know, supposed to be fact-based opinion. And also in the paper elsewhere, there are columns by people who are writing their opinion or their interpretation of an event. But the prime function is reporting of the news in an objective way. Do we fail sometimes? Yes. And, you know, it's interesting to me. I covered George W. Bush for many years as governor and in the White House when he was president. And it was always interesting to me, and I was writing news back then. It wasn't supposed to be any opinion, didn't intend it to be opinion. I would write some story about him, and then the same story, two people would read different ways, and I'd get an email from one saying, oh, you clearly hate the president, I can tell from this, and someone else says, oh, you clearly love the president. And I'd sort of get those people together and say, you need to talk amongst yourselves here. But what was interesting to me is often someone would say, you know, I can tell from your writing something you believe. And I did not intend it to be that way. And of course, we're all defensive. At first you say, oh, this is just some nut. But then if you look at it sometimes, frequently they'd point out some phrase I used or some sentence or some, you know, the way I juxtapose things. And I'd look at it and go, you know what? I could see how someone might get that. I didn't mean it that way, but, you know, this was instructive to me, and it helps to see things through other people's eyes.
Absolutely. That makes me wonder about when you're writing your editorial pieces. How do you form an opinion beforehand when you're writing those articles?
Well, it's important to know that you're right all the time. It's very important to always believe you're right, and that anyone who disagrees with you clearly is crazy. There's a couple different things. Until recently, I was on the editorial board of the paper, and that, when we write the editorials, one a day in the paper, and that is, there's no name on it, it is the position of the newspaper. And, you know, frequently it's on a topic where we've already had a position and we're just carrying that forward. Sometimes it's a new topic, and then it's the collective product of several of us sitting down, talking, disagreeing, sometimes arguing, though always agreeably, about it, and reaching some sort of consensus. And it's difficult at times. And as an editorial writer, sometimes you will write an editorial that you don't fully agree with. It's just sort of, you know, in the workflow of the day, you need to write it. So you need to write something, and you may not agree with it. Now, you tell the other people how wrong they are, but it is your job. It's the newspaper's position to do that. When you write opinion on your own, then it's just you know, whatever nonsense comes out of your own head, and it's pretty easy.
As you know, on Access News, we also talk about America's founding documents. And in addition to hot topics like this, of public policy and different ways to write editorials, I'd like to go ahead and take a few minutes to watch a video about our founding documents.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Hello, we're chatting today with journalist Ken Herman from the Austin-Statesman. So let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. When you are writing your editorials, what topic is just off the table?
Really not much. As a columnist now, I have pretty free rein. I enjoy respect from my bosses. I've been in this business for, what, about 36 years now, and they pretty much leave me alone. I think there are just all kinds of conspiracy theories out there about what goes on in a newspaper and how they're trying to slant things and how they're stifling people. The truth is, if people saw, even if we wanted to carry out a conspiracy, the way it operates, I don't think we could successfully do it. It just, every day, it's a struggle to get the product produced. I have great freedom now. I find after years of covering the White House and politics, which I still enjoy, I've come to a point where I sort of enjoy telling smaller stories. And sometimes a column is an opinion. It's just, you know, a story about something. It's sometimes just about a person or two. And generally, if it's a good one, it's not a famous person. It's just something that people can identify with. So I have great freedom now, and it's wonderful.
In all your years of experience writing, have you ever been censored?
No, I've been edited. I mean, censoring, again, we get back to censoring is something the government does. A newspaper,
what's the difference?
The difference is a newspaper edits. The editor of the paper runs the paper and gets to decide what's in there. Censoring is when the government tells you you can't do anything. I mean, it's effectively the same, but it's a matter of who does it. Yes, I've had columns where I've written things where I've had attempted jokes that some people didn't think were funny, which I can't possibly imagine how that happened. But yes, I mean, it is a process where, you know, I will write something. Then there's the first person who edits it, basically does it for grammar and spelling and all that overrated stuff, and for content. Then there'll be another editor who will edit for content. And there are things involving taste and what you can say about people. We try not to offend, though we do sometimes. But there is an editing process. I mean, there's I'm telling you, I have, of all the columns I've written, you know, in total, 98% of it has gone in exactly as I typed it. And, you know, the changes that were made was, I remember one time I had some joke in there that was maybe not for a family newspaper, and the editor of the paper came in and said, "Man, maybe we won't do this." And he was right. But they expect you to push it a little. It's a collaborative process, and there is nothing wrong with editing, though there is something wrong with many editors, I believe.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you self-censored, where you saw what was written down and decided, oh, not a good idea? And if so, what was that situation?
No, that only happens really 5 to 6 days a week, I would say. It's not that often. Yeah, sometimes you'll write something, and especially when you see it in the total package of what you did. You know, if I am, for want of a better phrase, ridiculing a politician, and you need to understand, politicians, they're almost like regular people. Some of them have feelings. They're almost normal. And at some point you realize, oh, maybe I've piled it on a little too far here, and especially if they're bigger than you want to worry about this.
When you write your editorials, or I don't mean to sound like everyone can write one, but what makes an editorial good?
No, you were right the first time. Anybody can do this. It's shockingly easy, and when that secret gets out, we're all done. What makes it good is having an idea and something that'll carry through all the way. I mean, I've had some where I have an idea and I write about, half of what I know the length needs to be, and I'll go, up, I have nothing else to say. And then it's generally not worth it. It has to be something that carries through. Some entertainment value helps. People don't like being written down to. I think we're way past the age of where a column or an editorial is just, I shall now proclaim the truth to you, and you shall listen, and you shall be set free by my genius. It's just, we have a lot of educated people, and a lot of people with opinions. Many of them are wrong, but you just can't do it by just declaring something. You either have to entertain a little to get your point across, and just not be confrontational about it. I mean, I know there's great money to be made in confrontational TV and radio, but then you're generally just speaking to the people who already agree with you, and I don't know what progress you make out of that.
Which of your editorials have drawn the most reader response?
I hear from my wife a lot about these things, and sometimes it's just not pretty. But it varies. You get some where people are entertained. You get some where people are touched or moved. I still get emotional about this one. I went to a funeral earlier this year of a Marine from Hutto who had died overseas in combat. And it really was just a small story about his family. It was an interesting family. Father is from Vietnam, a Vietnamese immigrant. Mother's a Hispanic from West Texas. They get married, produce a kid who becomes the all-American Texas kid playing high school football. And he gets killed. And I really just went out to the funeral home, actually the day before the funeral, had the viewing of the body and family there, and really just typed what I saw there. And I had a lot of response on that. That was very gratifying because people understood.
How do you measure reader response? How do you make a decision based on comments? Is it letters that are sent to you? Or
no, it's a lot of emails. I get a lot of emails from people for, against, and otherwise. We get letters to the editor, online comments on the newspaper's website, and phone calls. Some people, I still get a lot of phone calls. And it's a funny thing about reader response, and I realized this years and years ago. When people are angry at you, and they want to contact you, if they leave a phone message and they think that they're just sort of yelling into the wind, they can be fairly abusive. Some of you people are a little mean out there. But I find when you call people back and actually talk with them, most people immediately behave better, and you can have a good conversation. You still may wind up not agreeing, but they then stop thinking you're from another planet or something, and there can be communication that goes. And the same thing with email. A lot of people first thing to email you jerk you, and it's nice to hear from family members, but I just wish they went right that way. But if you respond to them, you can have communication, and it's that's what it's supposed to be all about. But I just fear the public discourse is so uncivil these days. Everyone thinks the other side is out to destroy America, as opposed to just some other Americans with a different guess as to what might work. It's not healthy.
Tell us a little bit about your movie, As I See It. It seems more like a journalist piece rather than an editorial piece.
It is. It's just what I do with some columns. I do these short videos, and we have found in newspapers a video, anything more than 2 minutes, no one's going to watch. They have to be short, and they have to entertain. But what I started doing these when I was still at the White House, and I realized I was seeing things that a lot of people don't get to see, that frankly when you're covering it seems mundane, but then you realize it's interesting. So, it's with the technology today, stuff is so simple to do. They have these computers now, and you can do these videos, and it's just interesting to me and helpful, I think, to show people. It's nice to write about it, but there's some things where you just show people what you saw. And I did them when I was just doing news reporting, and now I do them as I write a column, and anything where it's visually, potentially interesting, it's just helpful to show people.
You know, our governor, Rick Perry, is now running for president, and regardless of whether we agree or disagree with his politics, it's clear that he has been a successful politician. What would you envision a Rick Perry presidency to look like?
It's so hard to tell because I remember when Bush was running for president, and we all surmised what a George W. Bush presidency would look like, and it looked nothing like that. And it looked nothing like that because of 9/11, because the world changed, and what was supposed to be a heavily domestic-based presidency was forced into another mode. Again, whether we agree with how things went or not, clearly something had to be done to respond to that horrible day. So you kind of never know. I'm amazed that anybody wants to be president of the United States. It's just such a difficult job. We are in such difficult times. People have unrealistic expectations of what one person can do, albeit what we like to think is perhaps the most powerful person in the world. And it's difficult. So we don't know what it will look like because you don't know what's around the corner.
If Rick Perry were to win presidency, would you continue to follow his career, write editorials?
Oh yes, I certainly would. I don't think this time I would move to Washington like I did in the Bush years, although I enjoyed being up there, and all the travel around the world following a president is just a fascinating experience. But whoever becomes president, it's fascinating to watch. And if anyone defeats President Obama and we have a change like that at a time like this when we have 2 wars going on, an economy that just we can't seem to get jump-started, it's going to be fascinating to watch. And, you know, always in my life, I've covered presidential races since, I guess, about 1984, and every time the candidates say this is the most important election of your lifetime, what they really mean is the most important election of their lifetime because they're running. But this time, can anyone doubt how important this is because of the difficult challenges we face? We always face challenges, but the ones we face now just seem larger than many that we've had in recent years.
For our young viewers who may be considering going into a journalism field, what advice would you have for them?
Good luck. It's difficult because it's sad. I've been in this business, 35, 36 years. When I went into it, there was no reason to believe I couldn't have some sort of linear career that would move along and I would do different things and the industry would always be there. Younger people, there is not that guarantee. As a matter of fact, if you're 20 years old, there is pretty much a guarantee this, as it exists now, will not be there. Something will be there. So the dual challenge and opportunity is, no, you will not have a reasonable expectation of having a newspaper career for 35 or 40 years. However, you will have the great challenge and opportunity to help create what's next. And my advice on that is don't screw it up because there's a lot on the line here. But it's very challenging. To some extent, journalism has replaced art history as a major you hate to hear your kids are interested in because you just wonder if there's going to be a job in it. But I still see lots of bright young people come along. I tell them all the same thing. What were you thinking? You should have been born 30 years ago. I don't know what you were waiting for. We had a lot of fun in the 80s and 90s. But the challenge is there because it is huge, and it's important that we get it right. It's important that there is some flow of objective, reported, journalistic information in addition to just people spouting their opinions sitting on their computers at home.
Thank you, Ken, for being with us on Access News.
Thank you.
You can learn more about Ken and his journalism at www.americanstatesman.com. And at our website, you can ask questions, share your opinions at accessnews.us. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. One beautiful thing about America is that we, the people, have power. The more we know, the better decisions we can make. For Access News, I'm Tamara, and that's Austin.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Executive producers Devorah Ben-Moshe, Ken Herman. With funding from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation through the Knight Community Information Challenge. Supported by the Austin Community Foundation, fostering philanthropy in Austin for 35 years. The Austin Community Foundation, for now and forever. Created and written by Deborah Ben-Moshe, Ken Herman. Hosted by Tamara Sutier Ocuto. Interpreter for Tamara Sutier Ocuto, Jennifer Stoker. Crew: Producer Linda Latowski, Director Editor Orlando Lopez, 3D Animation Doug Gray, Technical Director Carla Saldana, Director of Photography Brian Blake, Assistant to the Producer Susan Harper, Original Music Aaron Jake, Camera Doug Gray, Tim O'Neill, Ross Wilsey, Production Sound Mixer Rod Simonson, Teleprompter Operator Brandon Taj Mora. Additional crew: photographers Eve Granick, Devorah Ben-Moshe, intern Brandon Taj Mora, additional interpreters Jacob Stacy, Tracy Hughley, Jessica Graves. Website developed by Electric Leaf, Jonathan Braden. Closed captioning provided by CPC, Closed Captioning and Subtitle Services. Signing the preamble and the First Amendment, Casey Ketchum, Tanner Ketchum. Coached by Mindy Moore. Special thanks to Susan Murnett, Lisa Williams, Mary Ben Ramsey, Monica Williams, Janice Kelklar, Paula Lang, Jeff Garvey. Claire Bugan, Bobby Guerrera, Russell Harvard, Cynthia Foss, Bill Stotesbury, Caitlin Mack, Yitzhak Ben-Moshe, Bobby Nord, Kenneth Gladish.
Hi, I'm Tamara, host of Access News. Join me as I talk with renowned scientists, community advocates, powerful business leaders, and politicians from both sides of the aisle.
Join me and Ken Herman, journalist for the Austin-Statesman, when we discuss freedom of the press. What makes an opinion good?
Join me each Sunday at 1 p.m. on KLRU Austin for Access News, hands-on news.